Cadmium Dread.
Also, we had a request from our guest today that Josh do the Cadmium Dread in Jar Jar Binks' voice.
Wait, when did this happen?
You were in the bathroom.
You're in the bathroom, but it makes sense.
Okay, let me think about this for a second. Cadmium Dread as Jar Jar Binks.
Mm-hmm.
Misa, welcome you to Cadmium Dread.
Oh my god.
I gotta go.
You asked for this.
Yeah, it was a mistake.
That was pretty good.
Thank you. I'm available to hire for impressions and crying baby noises by the hour.
Anyway, I feel like we should give a little intro. We don't usually do this, but we should.
Okay.
This is Cadmium Dread.
Oh, yeah.
It is the art podcast where me and Josh, me, Mimi,
and me,
and
Josh,
invite on guests who are artists in the entertainment industry, like video games or animation.
Performance dance.
That too.
We have yet to have a guest in that, but
Yeah,
we're
but
open
we're
to
open to
suggestions.
I mean, you have now.
Ooh. Well, that'll be part of the podcast, so we have to talk about that.
Yeah, and we just talk about our experiences and our influences and our inspirations.
What makes us tick?
Yeah.
What makes us not tick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Soup.
Which category
yeah.
does that fall under? Tick or not tick?
Tick.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's introduce our guest.
Sorry, it's very rude of me to be talking before my introduction. I apologize.
No,
to
this
everybody
is
out there in podcast land.
Everybody gets to be excited. Well, who's that? Who's that new like?
Have you heard?
It's Daniel Hurd. I'm sure you've never heard that before.
Nor has anyone ever else.
This is my
Nailed
first
it.
time meeting you.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, the first time meeting you, and you basically know nothing about me, other than what's on my Google Drive.
Mhm.
Yeah, this happens. You
Yeah.
know, I have met people for the first time sitting down and record, and this is Mimi's turn. So yeah, I have worked with Daniel, or I used to work with Daniel back in the Machine Zone days.
Yep. MZ Salt Tower, get ready, folks.
It'll happen.
Strap
There's no
in.
stopping it. And I'll let Daniel talk about where his journey has taken him since then. But yeah, that's where I met Daniel. We worked on Game of War and then Final Fantasy, and I mean you touched all the projects there, I'm sure. So
Yes, I did.
and you can talk about that if
They couldn't stop me.
Oh yeah, you were gonna touch him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's a very talented artist all around.
Much.
So tell us
Yes.
a little bit about yourself.
why don't you just
Introduce
tell us a little
yourself.
bit about
I was born in a thunderstorm.
Okay, let's roll a bit more forward.
Okay. I took art classes at the Art Center in Pasadena when I was in high school. Before that, okay, so my dad is a fine artist. He does gallery work. He's incredibly talented. He's one of the better artists I think working today. No one's heard of him. His name's Warren Hurd. Look him up. You can find him on Instagram as well. Thanks to the work of his daughter. He has no idea how an Instagram works. But he's a very, very talented painter. I'll share his work later. So I grew up with that being around me occasionally, and I always wanted to be an artist, but I also, thanks to my grandfather, was told many, many times that I would not ever make a living doing it. And so he thought, what if you did medical illustrations?
Wait, so what did your your
What?
your paternal grandfather?
No, my maternal grandfather.
Oh, okay. Because I was
my
like,
mom's
well, what
side.
did your grandfather say about your dad? But yeah.
It's quite a few things to say about my dad. Not all of them good. He actually. No, I'm not going to go into my grandfather.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. If anybody who reads the Sacramento Bee looks up Baghdad Jim, you'll get a fine history of my grandfather.
Sacramento. We're going from
Wow,
Pasadena
yeah.
to Sacramento. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up mostly in Southern California.
I see.
Sometimes for a period of time I was in Oregon, but when I was in high school, I was in the Valley, and I found out that there were summer classes for illustration at the Art Center in Pasadena, and that's when I started going to school for that. So yeah, that was my first taste of classes, professional work, and being able to walk around the gallery at Art Center in Pasadena that was where I was like, oh, I know this is what I want to do. Up to that point, I had taken acting classes, and I was enjoying being a theater kid and that kind of thing, but I really, really connected to a lot of the work that was in the student art show gallery at the Art Center in Pasadena. Even I'm sure if you can go there right now, you'll be just amazed by the stuff that's being brought out of that place.
Oh yeah, that's I'm sure a well of inspiration or like motivation. I kind of had a little bit of that in high school. I took like some summer courses in Academy of Art. Maybe it's a different level of like inspiration, but I remember seeing stuff on the walls and be like, man, this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'd like to go here until my parents were like, nah, it's too expensive.
Okay, well, so you think the Academy of Art's expensive? Where do you load to the Arts Center Pasadena?
Oh,
So I applied there.
I've heard.
So I took several classes. I was learning about what illustration was, as like a profession. I was reading lots of comics as a kid. I was reading comics as most of my early.
You don't say.
Yeah, yeah.
For those who don't know, Daniel's a well of information.
Yeah, ask me anything.
Oh, it's a lot of entertaining like lunch conversations about comics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I knew about comics as an illustration, but as an illustration, as a career for illustration, and but that was the first time I was introduced to like the wider spectrum of professional commercial art, and I deeply wanted to go there. It smelled good. It just smelled fantastic. There was, the smell of oil paint and, and clay, and there were people walking around with swords that they had just made.
Wow.
Like that, and like people like modeling cars and it was an incredible environment. It's built into a bridge that expands a ravine. It's a glass bridge, and it sits over this.
Yeah, I've actually never seen it.
Yeah.
So.
That's a hell of a place. It really is.
Wow.
So I mean, it's almost designed to capture your money and trap it forever. So I really wanted to go, but the admissions counselor, like the average age of the incoming freshmen are 27, and they typically already have a bachelor's degree when they start here.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that through myself. But that's the case, and so I went, oh well, I don't think I can quite, So I ended up going for my first degree. I chose a few schools. One was in Maryland. One of the schools was in Maryland, and the other one was the Academy of Art in San Francisco.
Good old Academy of Art.
Hell yeah! And I started going there. That was in 1999. Yep, a whole millennium ago. And so graduated there, went into book illustration around the same year that the print industry died, which is like a funny coincidence.
That's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it was, because like all of the work that I would have been doing just kind of went away.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ever really planning on being an editorial illustrator, and I didn't actually have a lot of skills as far as technical illustration. So I tried my hand in comics. I had a few things published through some of the San Francisco comic book scene at the time, and I knew a lot of people on the Warren Ellis forums, which was a comic book forum back in the early aughts that. A lot of really talented people came out of, people like Jamie McKelvey and Kieran Gillen, Brian Wood, some really talented writers and artists that make up probably the backbone of what is professional comic books these days. A lot of them got their start from Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick. A lot of these really talented writers came from that forum, and I got a little bit of work from that. And some of it was published, and some of it wasn't. And a couple of book projects here and there, but most of the time throughout the aughts and into the teens, I was working.
Sorry, unprofessional.
It's very unprofessional.
Oh,
how dare you? I was working mostly odd jobs, grocery stores, cafes. I was in a grocery store break room when a really talented artist who worked in the produce department, a man named Dean. Dean was, he's like, hey man, it's my last date. I'm like, oh, okay. Where are you going? There's this company called Admired in Palo Alto. I think they just changed their name to Machine Zone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay. Admired. I think actually I put my portfolio in with them. Maybe send a good word in with the art director or something. He says, oh, actually they're looking for 2D artists right now. Just give me your email address and I'll pass it along. And a week later, I went in and interviewed with Mike and one of the founders. And that afternoon, I was hired. And 2 weeks later, I started. 2 weeks after that, I got married. And 2 weeks after that, we found out that we were having a baby.
Wow.
That's a lot all at once.
And
Holy shit.
then I broke out into hives. No, really.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, literally. I'm starting to right now. It's very hot in here.
Oh, yeah. It's...
I'm getting a little
Or is it
heat
just me?
rash. You brought the heat.
Yes.
Wow, it's a whirlwind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was
Of a
like
time.
that was really when like art became a thing that I was able to sustain me, and actually it paid me better than, as it turns out, grocery stores ever did.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there goes my grocery career, but in comes the world of game art, and I
Yeah, quick question.
go ahead.
Like, were you prepared for that little transition? Like, kind of from being, like, I assume traditional artist to, like...
Well, I was mostly using Photoshop.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
so I had classes with an instructor named Robert Revels, who was deeply into Craig Mullins, and used like that as an inspiration to basically build the digital media curriculum at the illustration department. In
Oh,
the
that's
Academy of Art.
that's a very cool curriculum.
Yeah.
Yes, but it all
Yeah.
started. I mean, really, it literally started with Robert Revels saying, like, I want to teach an illustration class. Built because all the illustration classes were built around what medium you were using. So like illustration 1, you were using gouache. Illustration 2 was watercolor. Illustration 3, you could either be more watercolor, or you can do digital illustration. It was a brand new class.
Wow.
You would learn Corel Painter,
Wow. Yeah.
and Photoshop. And like I think Corel Painter was like a thing where they had to teach it because they had the license, and even though Robert really didn't want to teach Corel Painter, he was like, it's got some values. Like the brushes were actually better than what Photoshop had at the time. Like
Yeah.
Photoshop basically had the airbrush and a round, and like that was
It was bare bones back then, right?
yeah, it was really real. There's nothing to it. But I mean, like that's what Craig Mullins was using to make those amazing illustrations at the time. This was like hard round with opacity and probably not even like he had a stylus, but I mean it was a shitty stylus. It was like 128 values of pressure to it, you know, like it
Right.
was
Amazing what you can do with pretty much
if you're Craig Mullins.
nothing if you have all
Yeah.
that like
if you're
knowledge.
like a genius level
Yeah.
painter. Yeah. So I was using digital media to do a lot of my comic book projects, and,
Oh,
and
cool.
I use it a lot for my book covers,
Mhm.
and interior illustrations of the few projects that I had. And yeah, so like nothing like working on a canceled 64-page graphic novel to really level you up in Photoshop.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Canceled?
Yeah.
That
It turns out it
sucks.
took me a long time to get all that done.
Yeah.
Like way longer than I thought it would. And at a certain point, they're like, we have to stop.
Oh, I hope you still got paid.
Describe his face.
A lot of like pain and sadness all at once.
How about now?
Now it's sort of just like acceptance.
Yeah. Visual humor is great on podcasts.
Oh yeah, for as long as you have somebody to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was ready to work in digital media. I definitely could, and fortunately the portfolio that I had, I was able to show that. And I worked. It really didn't matter actually either, because like mostly what we were doing at MZ at that time was just like clipping stock photos. I'm talking like the at the time it was please do 30 to 40 icons a day.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's for anybody who doesn't really have sort of a point of reference. That's a lot.
It's a fuck
That's
ton.
a fuck. That's way too much.
It's way too much. But we did. Those of us who were hired during that time, and of those people, I think it was myself and Tom Crackey. I don't know if did you ever meet Tom?
I met Tom. Yeah. He was as I started at MZ. It was around when he was leaving.
Yeah.
And I remember everybody like was like sad, blah blah blah. This is Tom Craig. I'm like, I don't know who this is.
Yeah. Tom Crackey is the guy who basically did like all the promotional art for Game of War and designed a lot of basically what that game looked like. And he's a fantastically talented artist who now does tattoos in Pennsylvania.
Damn. That's what.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. He cashed out.
Was he the one who painted the The guy with
Oh, yeah.
the sword? Okay.
What did we McLovin.
McLovin, right.
He painted McLovin.
Okay. Can't believe you remember that. Well, I mean,
McLovin holding a sword?
Hell yeah.
McLovin was the name for the Game of War guy holding the sword.
The
and
splash screen
and the
guys.
splash screen. We had to deal with him being in the way every time we had to make a new splash screen.
He was always facing the wrong direction from a monster that was about to whoop his ass.
Yeah. You have to make sure that sword wasn't blocking your composition or making a weird tangent with something. It was just a compositional nightmare.
It
but
really was.
That's a tangent anyways.
A good one though.
Yeah.
You guys like tangents?
different use of the word tangent, but yes.
Yeah, none of those. No tangents.
Oh god.
Yes.
Black
Tom,
Ops.
he was I hired around the same time I was. He quickly leveled up into the Game of War production team. I was working on these pre-Game of War games, generation of games that MZ did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working with Nino, and Nino became the UI artist for Game of War because the people who were working on that before quit, got fired, left. I can't remember. He took over, and he brought his love of Diablo and God of War and all these different games to bear. He was a really talented artist who knew the game industry more so than I did. I hadn't played games for like 12 years. I like stopped myself. I said basically when I started at school, like I'm not going to bring my systems with me. I'm not going to play games at all. And I
What devotion?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
Well, no, because not devotion,
Or-
acknowledgement of like what I have a problem, and if there was at the time,
Discipline,
especially, it was about discipline and self denial.
Uh-huh.
So I spent a lot of my time when I was like relearning, what games were, what they become, what the different roles were, and what the standards of the industry. And I fell in love with games as an art form.
Mm-hmm.
Since Nino had been brought along as the UI artist and he was my lead, I ended up working under him, which is how I ended up being chosen to take the UI skill tree.
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out what UI was, and that's a whole thing.
So learning UI for you happened
Yeah.
on the job.
Yeah.
All right.
It turns out I know how to kern letters. So
Like intuitively?
no. Well, I mean, yes, maybe that's my special skill. The one thing like I can carry forward with me.
Mhm.
I think not everybody has,
Oh, I'm pretty terrible at it. Like,
Yeah.
there's like little games, like,
Yeah,
quote unquote.
You've
where,
done the online game where you do kerning.
I'm pretty terrible at
Oh,
it.
no.
I have to try that. I probably suck at kerning too. I remember we were like there was like a little thing around GDC this year where students came in at Glue or whatever for like some portfolio reviews, and there was a UI artist that me and a previous guest Dylan were like we were pairing up to critique people's portfolios. There was a UI artist girl who was doing UI, and he caught all these kerning mistakes.
Excellent.
And like she didn't know what the maybe she does know what kerning is, but she didn't know the term. It was just like really put her on the spot.
Rough.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But you gotta know that. I keep telling the story
Oh.
that way. She didn't cry,
Okay, good.
but I'm like, almost. Got close.
Whew.
Anyways, learning UI
So yeah,
on the job.
when I was doing book covers, a piece of advice an instructor told me was that if you are subcontracted by a graphic designer, that means that you're getting a portion of their pay. So you won't ever be paid 100% of what the book cover is worth if you are subcontracted. So you need to know how to set type. So if you're the only artist who's going to be working on that book cover, you'll get 100% of the monies that they'll be spending on designing that book cover.
Gotcha.
So I did a lot of like independent study as to graphic design, typography, what makes a good book cover, what makes a bad book cover. All these things I had to learn on my own. So that way when I was doing book covers, the few that I had done were actually 100% done by me. I did like logo design and typesetting and all that stuff.
That's pretty cool.
It was all right.
That's a skill set that I don't have anything in that skill tree.
Yeah.
So that made it appropriate for me to work in the UI department which was Nino and myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started. I did UI. I worked on Game of War, and then we did several projects like kind of like as it was mostly like portfolio stuffers, like for like the company. Like we did the unpublished Galaxy War.
I don't even know anything about that.
Oh yeah, Galaxy
Yeah.
War was dope. It was like it was Game of War, but it looked like
no
Halo,
way.
but also kind of like Borderlands.
Really?
Yeah,
That sounds cool.
It actually was pretty cool. So I did that was the first, so I skinned the entirety of Game of War in like a very StarCraft UI kind of like heavy metal
fucking
sort
awesome.
of way with blue lights and everything. It looked really
Wow.
it looked dope as hell.
If only they wanted to do more sci-fi.
Um.
Mhm.
Then we also
Sci-fi doesn't sell, according to Machine Zone. That's what we were told, basically.
Yeah. And we also did what it became Mobile Strike, and we also did one that was actually fantastic. It was
Is that what I think you're gonna say?
I'm gonna say the word chody.
Yes.
Yeah, we did chody.
Ah, man, that looked cool from what I saw.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
explain what it is.
Okay, no, it was.
It takes a bit of background.
Yeah, God, it was the project title for Game of War was Odyssey. Everybody called it Odie.
Yeah.
And so when we decided we were gonna do one that was based on like medieval Chinese, like 10 Kingdoms.
Yeah. What would you name that? Chinese Odyssey.
Chinese Odyssey.
Chody.
Chody.
That was
Sounds so bad.
Yeah, they have a talent for picking names. I'll tell you that. For or internal names, rather.
We are also working on one that was kind of like a dark fantasy. So it was a fantasy isometric game.
Yes.
So it was called Fatso.
Oh no.
Come
We
on,
weren't-
guys.
This is in our
People with a straight face would
Yeah.
call it.
We call it Fatso.
Fatso.
Yeah.
This is in our pre-woke period.
Jeez, that's really
We
funny.
all have
I didn't
one.
know about Fatso. I knew about Chody because there was a story of somebody looking in Perforce, which to anybody who doesn't know, Perforce is like the
version control.
version control, like sort of SVN, kind of like check everything into the game kind of thing.
Some of my So you would go back and you found some of that stuff in the
Yeah, that's where I remember Linda showing me a lot of it too, because I was like, "What's this Chody?" And like got the whole story about it, and I got to see like a lot of the art. I'm like, "This was really cool."
Edgar did some fantastic character designs.
I'm sure.
Really fantastic character design.
Edgar's another talented artist we need to have on this show.
The
but
other one, one you had Justin. We had on the project Justin Sansushi.
We need Justin on here too.
Justin's an actual legitimate rock star.
An actual rock star. I
Oh,
told you
yes,
about this.
yes.
I have told people that I know Justin at other places where I've never worked, and they have freaked out because they love him.
Yeah.
They love that band.
I didn't know about that band until I met Justin.
Yeah.
Just because I guess it wasn't like my scene, but I remember Katie Fortune like flipping out because she was a fan of his for the band for years and years.
Man,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like and like
And especially if you
for
know Justin, he is the most low key,
just
sweet,
humble, like sort of chill.
huggable man.
Yeah, do you look into his big old eyes from behind his lenses, and you're just like, oh, this is a sweet man. Yeah, he's a real good guy. We need to have him on. But
Some of the best work that he did at Machine Zone was for Fatso.
for Fatso,
Fantastic.
I never saw. See, I never saw anything of Fatso.
Yeah,
It was probably
I'll have to find some of that for you guys.
It'll be that's difficult to dig up. But hey, yeah, we still know people there. They probably show me Fatso.
I know a guy.
I know a guy. But yeah, I remember seeing a lot of Chody. And the funny thing is, it was just like, I hate saying
names.
it. I know, but it's so second nature to us to say these things. Odie, Niso, Chody, all this stuff.
Chody Wiseau.
Chody Wiseau, yeah. And there was somebody who was there who thought in the folder structure they saw Chody and they're like, oh, somebody misnamed Odie.
Oh.
Let me just fix that.
Yes.
And that deleted everything that was in the Game of War, like the repository or whatever.
Library.
Yeah. And that was a shit show. But
Oh my god.
yeah. So
Oh my god. That
maybe
was a
you don't
nightmare.
name your things that similar. I don't know. That was it's just a funny
So
story.
the fun thing about Machine Zone is that we were making up how to make games as we were making games.
I mean,
as though no one had ever done it before,
Yeah.
or since. We were going to do it our own way.
Yeah.
And then as they became like, when I started there, it was 40 people.
hmm
And by the time like you guys started coming in there, we were like pushing 1,000.
It's crazy. So
was-
many people there.
That's crazy.
It was
in
a-
like a span of how long? From 40 to like 1,000.
About 5 years. Yeah. Like 4.5, 5 years, it went like rocketed. I remember this the
Yeah.
CEO at one point saying like, when after Game of War came out, it was like started blowing up the charts. Like even in its first few weeks, He says, like, this is outperforming anything that we had ever imagined it would. We are on a rocket ship made out of money, and the only people that can fuck it up is us.
That's a great way to
Whoa.
describe it. Yeah.
It was, and it was just
Oddly prophetic. No.
yeah.
It's also like very cinematic. Too.
Yeah.
It's very dramatic, and I can just see
I'm
it.
almost surprised at the imagery that he was able to come up with.
He was always really good at that.
Really.
That was if anything that that was his superpower, was standing up in front of people and talking some sick game.
That's a good skill to have, to be honest.
Mhm.
Invest in that skill tree.
Very much. The
Um,
UI, I mean, sure, but talking sick game.
Yeah.
That's where the
That
money
would get
is.
you places. But hey, I don't know. Your UI tree came up pretty well.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of reskins, even before they were published, and then they hired, like really interesting people like animators and professional development directors and Voldemort and
Yeah.
like all of these incredibly important and powerful people that we all learned a lot from. Yeah, and in particularly. He who cannot be named came from the same background as where I was currently working. So
That's right. He was UI.
he was UI.
Yeah.
He was a UI artist, and that became the Dark Lord. And
yeah.
so I was able to learn.
Did you learn a lot from him?
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, we took a little bit of a break, and I was filling in Daniel on a little bit of the what's gone on with me and my little return to MZ, where I got to like sort of scope it out for a bit as a contractor, see
Yeah.
how it's been, and yeah, and I've talked about it before on the podcast. Like, yeah, it's different. It's like way more chill, kind of,
Well, that's good.
and because I got that time to be there and be like, okay, things are chill. There's sort of a new crowd. It's still a little bit of the old MZ, but like definitely toned down. Definitely like things are managed a bit less hectically. So yeah, but it was nice running into an old, seeing old faces again.
Totally.
It's weird how small this world is. If you just stay in this area, especially, like
Well, yeah,
you'll just run into everybody.
You'll just run into Voldemort in the halls of the place.
Yeah,
you've been working
and
for
well, I
the
mean,
last
actually, I
60
can
months.
also fill you in on another old face. Remember Andre?
Yes.
Got him a job at her little temp job, a glue,
Yeah,
sitting next to me.
No, wait. Which Andre though?
Oh, I'm talking Mina.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the Roche
oh
girl.
yeah, good.
Yes,
No, they're both
yes,
good.
Not
Both
yeah.
Andres are good.
They're good in their own ways.
There are no bad
Sorry,
Andres.
I had to like clarify the Andre.
Andre the Giant, Andre Mina, all of them. They're fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was like a 2D art job, so I was gonna like I threw out some names and they called him in. Yeah, so he's also doing well. Just in
And for
the
any,
subject of old faces.
First time listeners, Josh was at Machine Zone and then
You
Glue.
mean Karenka?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
I'm
people
sorry.
don't know. So yeah, some people have heard of me.
Yeah.
And like didn't know who I was until they realized I was Karenka and not Josh.
Yeah. Because you know why, right?
Because there were 5 Joshes at one time. I've explained
Oh.
this. Yeah.
There
So we all were by our last names.
That's
There
okay.
was,
You're like the only one now.
There was Josh Prime, that was Godin.
Yeah.
And then Harris, and then
me.
you, and then
Guglielmo.
Tickle Me Elmo.
Yeah. Always even it's like a Spanish like sort of name, and
Yes.
even my Spanish heritage, I'm not sure exactly. I can never picture how it's spelled, so I can't remember how to say it.
Did he go to Rooster Teeth?
He did. I think he's
Yeah.
still there. I'm not sure.
Fantastic.
It's hard to keep up with everybody, but yeah, he went to
Yeah.
Rooster Teeth. So
And
it's kind of like,
Karenka
and
was
me,
at Machine
Karenka,
Zone, then Glue, then Machine Zone. Now he's back at Glue.
yeah, I did like a little bit of a shitty shift, and it's definitely like I gotta stop doing it. Like my resume must look bizarre, and I have to stop hopping back and forth.
Yeah.
Although maybe I keep doing it because it
I
should
don't
be
know.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn my career into a joke because that's
It's
what I would do.
I don't think that's actually that uncommon in the
In the-
Bay Area commercial video game
Yeah,
art scene.
no, it's
You've got about 5 choices, and you just go back and forth between them as a case on a case by case.
yeah, no, and I totally get that. Like that's something you do. It's just with the frequency or the what's the word? Just the time between each one
Yeah. that's
should
fine.
be a little bit longer
Yeah, I guess,
than 2 months at
whatever.
a time. Was there 3 months? I forget.
It's fine. It's fine.
All
Yeah.
time is blurred together for me. It's all a mess. I don't really know where the last year went.
Girl, same.
Yeah. Want to talk about the last year?
Sure.
Or are we not there yet?
No, I guess we're
I forget where we left off on the Daniel story. On the Daniel train.
It's a non-linear story.
Yeah, let's tell like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Sure, yeah, or Terrence Malick, where we just kind of whisper into the microphones, like non sequitur poetry over stock footage of people rolling down a lake.
That sounds more like your style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Actually, in my visual memory, we left off with that guy saying we're on a rocket ship made of money or whatever.
Yeah. So the rocket ship of money went off, and we went to the whole company went to Vegas a few times, and
I missed all that. I started right after the last Vegas trip.
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
But you were there for Zed.
I was there for Zed. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. The time they brought
Vegas thing.
They brought Vegas to San Francisco.
Yeah. It was a summer party,
including
right?
a summer party, and it included Zed,
who at the time, and I didn't know who that was.
Nope.
So they were like, "It's Zed" or whatever, and I'm like, "Who?" Like as the music's starting, and I know now he's like a DJ, but I still don't know who he is.
I mean, he's pretty big.
I'm sure he is. It's just not my jam. You know? But I was really miffed. Not miffed, but I was just like, I don't get it. I walked away. I walked out of the.
No, but it was a really big deal. The whole they turned a warehouse on a pier into a full-size casino.
Wow, they did
party.
Bring Vegas to you guys.
They brought Vegas. The food was.
If there's one thing Machine Zone could do, is throw a party.
Yeah, it was. Yes, hell yeah, it was fantastic.
It was a really cool party.
It was a pretty good. It was very good.
Everyone was looking fly.
Wow. All right. So far in the Machine Zone movie, we've got opulence.
Yes.
We've got a lot of talent.
Yeah. Childlike wonder.
Yeah. Like some of the most charming and nice people you'll ever meet, and then there was the grind.
Yeah.
And then there was the grind. And
that's probably the biggest, most overwhelming part of it.
The 100-hour work weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And just it was
those holidays spent as Santa's worker elves, which fucking killed me, that comment. I have somebody else, another very talented artist, Edgar.
Yep.
Who we were just doing all this overtime around the holidays because there was so much that had to come out because it was the holidays, so you had to have all this holiday content.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
You were there for that time when we were doing the sales art for the first time.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And we were just listening to somebody had Christmas music playing out of their speakers at the laptop.
Yeah.
And we were just all
I think
heads
it was
down.
Manjit's idea.
Yeah. It probably was keep up the spirit or whatever, but it had that opposite effect.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Yeah, because Christmas music already makes me kind of miserable, and in that context, it's also maybe partially PTSD. Maybe that ruined it for me more.
Yeah.
But we were just all heads down, complete silence, Christmas music going, and Edgar's just like, "This is what the elves felt like, huh?" And just it was almost one of those cathartic releases where you were holding in so much stress that you can't stop laughing after something like that happens. That's what happened to me.
Hysterical laughing.
Yeah, it was literal hysterical laughing. Yeah.
You should have Edgar on so the guys you can both talk for 2 hours and then he can interject every 30 minutes with a hilarious joke.
Yeah, that's true. He specializes. He's like a joke assassin.
Yeah.
Silent until he's got the one that kills you.
Yep.
So many characters.
I know.
It's great.
So many
it's a cast. It's a cast. It really was.
The art department. It's all just the art department.
We don't even have to leave the art department to fill up this whole podcast with stories.
Nope. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then there was that sad period where that train was the money, the rocket ship had run out of money and everything was ending, and we were all kind of partying, going into separate directions. It's that part of the Muppets Take Manhattan where they all get into different cars and they all drive in separate directions. And I ended up at EA for the last 16 months of working on their mobile title, Command and Conquer Rivals, which is by far one of the best games I've worked on in my career up to this point.
Awesome.
It was so good and it made so little money. Yeah.
Go play it, everyone.
Yeah, it was just a darn shame all around. It was a heck of a game. If you want to go out and download it, I swear to God, it is one of the best representations of a RTS, an actual real time strategy combat game for the mobile device. Real people, real honest to God, RTS game designers who worked on the original Command and Conquer franchise came in and worked on this game, and we had a tremendous art team putting together like just a really fantastic game with, and I had to learn all kinds of new things, like proprietary tools and engines, and I ended up becoming more of a front end developer in the last year than I ever was at Machine Zone.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's been quite a journey, and it's been really interesting going from a startup that became a game studio to a like giant, like a giant company that contains game studios,
right?
That all have like separate cultures and identities, and that and how it all fits under one umbrella is, all these different things I've had to learn. It's been really interesting. I've been working, so I worked on that game and been working on a few other different things.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, being in like that sort of environment of like a huge company with all these studios. That's it. I feel like we have a microcosm of that at Glue, but it's probably nothing like being in one of the biggest companies in the biz.
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
It's weird.
The idea that there's all these like separate groups all within that, like
like there are companies. There's DICE in Stockholm, and they're making Battlefield,
right?
And Battlefront, and like all of these like
and they're all over the place, and it's just their own worlds.
Yep.
Their own teams or families, kind of. But
and they all come into the because I work at the Redwood City location. They're that's kind of like the corporate hub. So that's where the CEO is, and so that's where everybody comes to share and have meetings. And so you see tons of different people always coming in and going from that place.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it's been interesting because like the floor I work on, I work on the top floor up there, and it used to it's like covered in Star Wars art because that's where Visceral used to be.
I was about to be like, is it one of the Star Wars that never happened?
Yeah, it's the one that killed the Dead Space studio.
Man, such a good studio though. Like,
yeah,
Dead Space was just such a masterpiece.
Yes, it was, and so was Dead Space 2.
Yeah,
parts of 3.
I never played 3. I think I didn't get around to it. I might have been burnt out because I played those 2, and then a friend of mine was like, "Read the book," and I was just like, "It's too much Dead Space."
Yeah, so it's been interesting. Like I came in, and I felt like we're kind of like building off of this cemetery of another studio. And then we slowly it became our studio, and then recently like the studio got disbanded. Because the support for the game was going to be done by another studio, an offsite studio, and so everybody, again, like the Muppets, they all just got sent in different train cars and shipping containers and sent to different locations. And we were all working on different things. And then recently, today I put in my 3 weeks notice. I'm not going to be working there anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, big news.
Yeah.
Crazy timing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really weird, right?
Yeah.
So as everyone's kind of moving in these different directions, one of them said, "Hey, add me on LinkedIn since I'm leaving." And, okay, absolutely. I go to LinkedIn, and that morning I had a message from a recruiter in my inbox from WB Games in London, and
we're making faces that the audience can't see.
We're recoiling in surprise.
So I'm like, oh, okay, well that's the kind of thing that only happens every like out of nowhere, so might as well just take a look, see what update the portfolio and send it off, and by the time I updated my portfolio and sent it off, that they're like, oh, we hired internally, but thanks for the interest. But then literally that morning when they said thanks for the interest, WB Games in Chicago, a recruiter there sent me something in my inbox. They're like, hey, we're looking for a senior UI artist for NetherRealm.
Oh.
And I said, oh, okay. And would you like consider chatting with the people there? And I chatted with them on the phone, and they said, okay, would you like to fly out here and meet the team and come see the studio? I said, sure,
Okay.
sure, I do that. So I flew out there a few weeks ago, and then they offered me a job for the part of the mobile department at NetherRealm. So
That's
On the
awesome.
spot.
yeah, well, not on the spot.
Ah.
They wait for me to get home. So
Wow.
yeah, so I
Chicago.
yeah, I
NetherRealm.
yeah, NetherRealm, the people, the Mortal Kombat creators.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah. It's pretty. I'm incredibly excited.
That's awesome. So you're gonna be moving out there,
I'm going to be moving out there in the next 5 weeks or so
Wow.
to Chicago.
taking the whole family.
Yeah, well, I'm going to leave some of them.
Okay.
We haven't decided which ones.
Big moves.
Yeah,
Right.
big moves. So I'll figure out which kid to leave behind, and then we'll go to Chicago.
I'm only taking my
Wow.
favorite.
Yep. We'll figure out. You'll know which one.
Does it feel similar to like those periods of 2 weeks where it was like you got hired and then you got married and then you had a baby?
Yeah.
Or
No,
like,
it feels a lot like that. That's the same kind of feeling I have right now.
Whirlwind of events.
yeah.
Where I made the decision. Yes. Okay. Fine. We'll move to Chicago, and then it's like, okay. Well, typically people who are moving in from out of state start within 6 weeks. Six weeks.
It's a fast move.
We're lucky we caught you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding, right?
I'm glad I hit you up when I did.
I mean, like literally while that's going on, you're like, "Hey, man, want to record a podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got a few
We're
things."
part of the whirlwind.
I have a few things I want to talk about at the moment
Wow.
about games and making games and studio culture and all those things.
Yeah. So glad I caught you.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, a couple weeks ago, somebody who I work with, higher up, they said like there's two kind of companies that you can work for in the Bay Area. One's a scrappy meat grinder like MZ,
Mm-hmm.
or like what MZ was, and I can't speak for what it is now.
Right.
And one's like a giant bureaucracy, like Zynga or EA.
Or EA, yeah.
And then that guy said like, I don't want to work for either of those two things, but those are the two choices I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, yeah. And then I was like, what's the other option? And is it, I'm gonna go see if it's something like what NetherRealm's like.
Yeah, because the other option is go somewhere else.
Yeah, go somewhere else, which is I don't want to say it's getting harder to live in the Bay Area because it's never been easy. I've been living out here since I moved up here for school, like in '99. So I've been here a while, 20 dang years.
Yeah, that's a while.
But it's going to be interesting because the money spends a little bit more out there.
It's true.
And the ability to buy a home is the thing that I can actually do while being a senior artist at a game studio.
Yeah.
Which I don't know is possible out here.
Yeah, I
can't
can't visualize
I know. It's something I think about all the time.
Yeah, right. I mean, like I said, it's a
Yeah.
thing that I think about a lot. Because I live in like a small 2-bedroom apartment, which is it's like a dump. It's not really a great place to live, but we make it work. The people who live there are incredibly happy, like families. And we have our family, but it's we're squeezing into an 800 square foot spot, and there's not many places that we could move where our money would spend as far as where we are right now.
Yeah.
In the Bay Area, I mean to say. So, yeah, moving out to someplace like Chicago, it's possible for us to do more than that.
Yeah.
Do anything more than what we have right now.
Yeah, flourish a little bit.
Yeah,
hopefully.
exactly. So, it also comes with sub-zero temperatures for
real
4 months out
winters.
of-
Yeah,
Real winters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
For 4 months of the year.
We don't have real winters here. All right.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
So, when are you gonna move out? Like,
I have. I
so
think
you got 3 weeks left.
So yeah, 3 weeks. But my wife's a videographer. She does a lot of work filming weddings. That's what she does on the weekends. And so she has 3 weddings that she's got to film. Well, actually 2 weddings and a music video that she's filming in the next 3 weekends.
Okay.
So we can't do anything as far as like going out there and looking for an apartment at the next 3 weekends, which means
Okay, that makes sense why you couldn't record the podcast on the weekends.
Yeah.
All right, it's starting to fall in place.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the weekend after that, we're going to be going to Chicago to house hunt. And then 2 weeks after that, I'll be starting at NetherRealm. So
Crazy.
I hope to God we find something
Wow.
while
Yeah.
we're out there.
Right.
So yeah, so that'll be interesting. Maybe working for them in their mobile department, and I think the plan is to start a new game this year. So it'll be
Awesome.
really exciting.
Good to be on the ground floor on that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the biggest reason why I'm moving out there, because that's my favorite part of game development.
The beginning.
The beginning.
Yeah, it's true. It's I got to experience it once so far.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I say I did.
I mean,
it's building off of the groundwork of something else, but yeah, it's still.
But before that, though, it was the interesting thing is like when we started work on Final Fantasy,
it wasn't Final Fantasy.
It didn't have an IP yet.
That's true. It was something unique that we kind of wanted it to be kind of like Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
it's true. We got to like really. It was almost the experience of just making a fresh, like original game.
Yeah, it was blue sky until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
To have the precognizance of knowing that all that work was just going to get replaced anyways, felt like it would have been like, if I had known, if I could go back and be like, it'll be Final Fantasy, you just do what the fuck you want right now. But
right.
It would have been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember when I started it at MZ, there was one of the people who was like part of like the higher ups. Somebody was complaining because it's like, look, I just made all this artwork. And it's not going to be used. It's like all been thrown away, and
sort of being a little bit butthurt about it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. He was hurt because a lot of the people there were green. They were the first. This is the first time they'd ever made a game before. So
yeah, like me.
They'd never experienced that feeling of like, all right, so we were just worked for 6 months and now it's all gone. Goodbye.
Yeah, very common in the game.
Bye, honey. So that he was not totally okay with that, and the guy's like, look, we don't pay you by the drawing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So don't worry about it.
You were paid the whole time.
You're paid the whole time. You're going to get paid tomorrow.
Yeah.
So work on the thing that we're asking you
to do now.
And
I think you said the same thing to me at some point because like you sort of like passed on that like little nugget that from whoever else. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of fucking sense. Like
yeah, right.
Why complain?
Well, I mean, one because it's not going to get you very far.
Complaining doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, that's still a lesson that I'm learning. But also, in particularly that, like the process of making a game is largely a process of serving a client's desires.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to any other illustration or freelance art gig that you have. You have a client. In this case, the client's like the people who run the company. They have an idea about what they want. They may not be able to articulate that out loud, but it's your job to make sure that the thing that they have in their mind that fits all of their criteria is achieved, and it's still a thing whether or not you're happy with it is almost secondary. But also, look, you got to go to work tomorrow, so
it's true.
You want to make sure that the thing that you have is something that you're happy with. So it's like that amazing balancing act between their desires and your goals.
Mm-hmm. And I think, partially also, you do work, design or whatever for like the audience as well that you're shooting for. I think we had a little bit of like discussion about that recently at work too. It's like you have to consider the audience that this is for as well as like, so you're working for like the client, you're also considering the audience, and it's like very little of what it's not for you kind of thing, like left over in the equation. That's why I think I've even mentioned like the ego has like no place in that, but like
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I mean, okay,
I know what you're
not
saying.
No place.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, maybe I'm like making hyperbole out of it.
I don't know. I guess there just needs to be like a difference between the work you make at art
at work. The work.
I'm sorry, it's
the
late.
Art you make at work.
It's not late.
Yeah.
It's late for me. The art you make at work and like and the art you make for yourself.
That's
like
true.
They should be different.
Well, they definitely should.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's like there's art through adversity, right? And going to work every day is an adversity.
That's true.
So, you're stuck with the parameters that you're given. It was George Lucas went out to make Star Wars, and he went to the desert, and it started raining.
Right.
Right. So I mean, and that literally happened. Like
basically everything that could go wrong with that production didn't.
Yeah. And
it did.
Steven Spielberg went to make Jaws, and the shark didn't work.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. the animatronic shark they built broke, and
Mhm.
they couldn't get it on camera.
Seawater broke it. Who knew?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I mean, and those are those two movies like redefined cinema for the next 50 years.
Mhm.
So these
And then
these,
George Lucas made prequels with
Oh,
like
we
all
don't
the
talk
technology in the world, and
Nah.
what happened there? From the comfort of his own chair.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that anymore. Says Daniel's face right now.
Yeah.
I have talked about it a lot,
I
not
know.
on podcasts, but I've talked about it.
We've had a lot of discussion about film. I feel like just
That's probably my other favorite subject of conversation.
oh yeah,
Um,
comics and film.
Comics and film.
That took up a lot of lunches.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Angrily deciding which movies are terrible
Mm-hmm.
and which are actually secretly fantastic and you should watch. I've had a really great ongoing conversation with a coworker at EA, where she said that Alien Resurrection was the worst movie she's ever seen. And I said, that is nowhere close to the worst movie I've ever seen. I present to you X-Men Origins Wolverine
Oh,
as
God.
the worst movie ever made.
I got to see the worst version of that worst movie.
Oh, hell yeah.
The leaked one that came out like
the Pirates Bay version.
Yes.
I saw it on an airplane.
Well, I mean,
Appropriate.
that's the best viewing platform for any movie.
That's what that movie deserves.
Mm-hmm.
It deserves a tiny screen and a crying child.
Yeah. It's about when they were on the airplane. I remember the shot where the VFX had stopped being made.
Yeah. Oh man.
We're like, is this the real movie? Is this the full? And then we got to the part where like Ryan Reynolds is reloading in the air, and like it was just like gray boxes, kind of animated, and he like there was still green stuff left over that hasn't been keyed out yet.
They blamed that leak on that movie's failure, and they were wrong.
Yeah, it's just the movie.
That was just the movie. Like
Yeah.
the finished version, like special effects as they were, did not actually make that movie any way better.
They did
That is
not. You can't fix something that's like fundamentally broken.
You can't polish a turd.
Yeah. Deadpool. So I remember seeing a collection of Deadpool concept art.
Yeah.
From like early on, like well after the movie had come out.
That movie, the X-Men Origins.
The X-Men Origins
Wolverine.
Wolverine.
The Wolverine.
Yes.
Yes.
And which is just it was not Deadpool.
No.
First of all, we eventually did get Deadpool. Thank God.
Yeah, it was Baraka from Mortal Kombat.
It was Baraka with everyone else's superpowers.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. But there were like maybe I want to say maybe I'm exaggerating but maybe I'm actually remember correctly, there were 90 designs and like a lot of designs for Deadpool in this like art drop that was posted. None of them looked good. Not a single one was Deadpool. They were all weirder than the last. There were some that were a little bit, maybe you could say they were better than the one that they ended up in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They were just varying levels of turd. Like just these designs.
Pale white turd.
Oh, man. Yeah. Some were a little bit more outlandish. They were definitely told whoever was designing these, like the Deadpool design, like don't make it look like the comic book character. They were not allowed to go anywhere near that. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure, it was like an art direction thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
That movie was just fabulously bad.
I could almost like look at it as a character design bible of what not to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That movie is every decision is bad except for Lee Schreiber being Sabretooth. He's like this, this balletic menace that prowls through this absolutely absurdly terrible film, just like radiantly shining above everyone else.
Wow.
Including Hugh Jackman. He was spectacular. Like he was it was a part he should never have been cast in, and yet he was perfect for. So like even then you can almost say like, oh, that movie's not terrible. Lee Schreiber's in it, and he turns in like an actual performance despite all indications, indicating that should never be.
Yeah.
So like
we can think of worse movies.
So there's an artist like actually coming to work under like probably the most miserable of circumstances, which was a terrible movie. And everybody had to know that it was the case, that they were making a terrible movie.
Yeah.
And actually, like,
still giving his A game.
Yeah, using
Yeah.
his craft to make something that he can go home and be proud of.
Damn.
That's the real. There's art development for you.
All
like
right.
commercial art development is Lee Shriver somehow being a fantastic saber tooth.
Yeah.
While running on all fours.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Because that's a thing.
Now I gotta go back and watch
Sabretooth
the movie again.
No, don't.
No, I'm not going.
Well,
to.
maybe.
I'll go back and watch the Pirate Bay version.
Mm-hmm.
Just for extra enjoyment, because I didn't finish that one. I was like, it was in a dorm room in college, and I just eventually walked out.
So you missed the part where another fantastic actor whose name escapes me intones gravely into the camera. The only thing that can kill him is an adamantium bullet.
Okay, that was the line I was expecting, but my favorite line,
Because he's like a werewolf now, so like an adamantium bullet will somehow kill him if they shoot him in the brain.
yeah, that was it was contrived to say the least.
You think?
My favorite line from that movie. I don't know. This is a very long Wolverine Origins.
I know, that's fine.
Tangent.
That's
but
where we go when you invite me on a podcast.
I expected
Sorry.
nothing less.
That's what's gonna
This is
happen.
why I have you on.
Yeah.
But my favorite line was definitely like, I forget which character they had captured or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
and the old guy who was the bad old guy who made Weapon X.
Yeah, the guy who's not Brian Cox, but he's playing Brian Cox.
Right, exactly. Basically turns to the camera. He doesn't actually, but he might as well have, and he goes, "Add him to the pool, the dead pool."
No, you're misremembering.
I think
No.
I'm not misremembering because me and my friends still quote that all the time.
No, I think he's right.
Yeah.
That's a thing he
That
says.
was a line.
This
He
is
says
not
that out
real.
loud.
Fatso is not real.
Oh, have we been
Chody is
yeah,
not
we've actually
real.
This is the part of the podcast where we reveal that we've been messing with Mimi the whole time. And everything has been made up.
Yes.
Josh Harris doesn't actually exist. Like all
Who's that?
Yeah. All this stuff. Yeah. No, everything we've said today is true.
It's true.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what it was we were talking about.
Yeah, it's wild. It can't all be true. None of that makes sense.
I've never told a lie.
Hmm.
That's the first lie of the podcast. Hey, man, I can't stop thinking about Wolverine and, by extension, Hugh Jackman and how ripped he is. I'm distracted. What are we talking about? Is this an art podcast?
We're talking
What's going on?
about weirdly ripped people. We can go back and talk about Edgar.
We could, yeah. Our weirdly ripped member of the art team,
Yeah.
who would be always off doing, not always, but would.
He at what point towards the end
He got into CrossFit,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So
and it was
who was it that ran into him? Was it you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I ran into him on the street and he was walking past me with somebody with his friend from CrossFit and he
I want to hear the story of this like ultimate like sort of flex / power move.
It's kind of a visual. I'll do my best. He was walking. I'm walking towards him. He's not wearing a shirt. He just came out of CrossFit and he's glistening. He was a wayfish, like very slight person when I first met him, and he like sculpted himself into like an Adonis at this point. And he's walking past me, and he takes his water bottle out and just starts pouring it on his chest, like back and forth like this.
And he sees you, right?
Yeah, he saw me.
Okay.
He's saying like this. And I built a statue to him in his honor, just right there. I was so
Well, deservedly so.
incredibly
That's
pleased.
amazing.
Yeah, it was.
That is a team of artists.
Yeah,
It sure is.
It sure was.
Yeah, a lot of team bonding happened for like a good portion of time over exercise, where we would just disappear for. At the end of it, we would disappear for an entire hour.
Yeah.
To go and do push-up
Actually, how
club.
closely did you and Daniel work together?
Well, since they continually sort of pulled
the UI team.
UI
and
2D art like further and further away from each other, like we would see probably less and less of each other over time.
Yeah. Well, I'd say for the first almost year, we were sitting close to adjacent.
Yeah, exactly. And Daniel working on UI and me on the 2D art team, we didn't like work on literally the same things, but since UI stuff was always so like closely tied, there would always be like interacting with each other. Like maybe you need art that I was doing. I would need your to me endless knowledge of what the game was. Like, hey, what is this icon? Can you explain what this is? Blah blah blah. Like so yeah, we worked since we were on the same projects. There was a lot of cooperation at least.
It was a systems heavy game, and I knew a lot of the systems.
Exactly, and I feel like I'm always just a little bit lost, no matter where I am or how long I've been there. And I need somebody who knows more. So thank God there always is somebody who knows more than me. Like, I fear for the day that I become the most knowledgeable person in the studio.
Truly, this is our darkest hour.
Exactly. It's like that moment where you realize that you as you're coming into adulthood and you realize you have that realization that your parents were at that age or whatever, and you reached that point and where you used to think they knew everything and you realize they were winging it the same way you are, and it's just your worldview shatters a little bit and everything becomes a bit more.
You think that's weird? You should try doing that in front of a child, your child.
Yeah, see, I haven't reached that point yet where I've created my own spawn and I'm living that lie and they believe it, and then
yeah,
I don't. You probably haven't got to that point. Maybe you have, where they have realized the lie that you live in front of them. Okay.
No, they never will too.
Yeah, don't show them this podcast.
Yeah.
There's too much cursing in it.
They're fun to drop with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they like it a lot?
They do. My daughter really loves drawing, and she's definitely already adopting that skill tree.
I believe I've
you
seen
and
a
your
little
wife
bit
are
of that
both,
on your Instagram.
Visual kind of artists. You and your wife are both kind of like.
Yeah, no, she's she. I think when she was younger, she wanted to become a graphic designer. She never quite got there, but she did learn videography, and she's a remarkably talented photographer and editor. And is directing her own video projects for local bands.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's tremendous. I have nothing but the greatest admiration for her work. So yeah, I mean it is something that my daughter's parents are, two working commercial artists. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's definitely not what I
What a lineage of art in the family.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be funny though.
You bring some of it on your side, and on her side she brings it. That's crazy. So your children will be the best artists of their generation. Hopefully.
Or they're gonna grow up thinking this is the way things are. Oh yeah, you can just be an artist and you buy a house somewhere in America, and that's fine. No, it's not. Then I'm gonna have to somehow I'm gonna have to become this weird opposite person where I'm you can't be an artist. You have to become a doctor.
Says the artist.
Yeah, says the commercial artist.
Yeah, the situation that doesn't happen the other way.
No,
doctors are always no, you got to be a doctor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna become some kind of weird fascistic parody of.
Well, as artists, we are the self-denying breed.
Mm-hmm. No, what? Since when?
I mean, feel like
not me.
Oh, I guess I did deny myself video games and such.
Exactly.
When I was in college. Yeah, that's true.
And I deny myself, I don't know, existential happiness.
Well, there was, I remember reading an interview with a great comic book artist, Paul Pope, and he talked a lot about how a great portion of being a comic book artist is self-denial, because you have to close yourself off from basically the outside world when you are doing commercial.
Because it's all consuming a little bit.
It's all consuming, yeah. There's especially if you're working for a company making comic books, the expectation is that there are 22 pages that need to be done every month, right? And
that's a lot.
So that's 1 page a day every day.
Yeah.
If you can do that, then you get weekends. Most people can't do a page a day.
Yeah.
So then you don't get weekends, and you work nights.
Such a rough life.
So and then if you're somebody like Paul Pope and you're a true artist, you are also struggling with that demon of the work that you're doing is important to you. So you have this incredible deadline, but you also have a standard an unfulfillable standard that you're holding yourself to.
Yeah.
So and Paul Pope is this interesting character where he marketed himself as this kind of like Warhol like rock star that existed outside of the mainstream comic sphere. But he's like, but the flip side to that is I never leave my apartment ever to complete the work that I'm doing.
That's intense.
Yeah.
This is the portion of the podcast where we talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Okay.
And now I can see why Araki wrote Rohan, who's a mangaka, who's like a manga artist. And everyone's like, oh, this is like his self-insert character. And I'm like, that's the character he wishes he was. Because this guy can like, he has like sequences where he is making a page and he does it within like a couple minutes. Like he does like these incredible sketches and then like inks it and he like throws like blots of ink from his pen that perfectly fill spaces.
I love that.
And I'm like, that's why when people ask me like,
and then the insert shot, someone going,
well, people see it and then they do that thing. I'm like, like, he's so incredible.
This is a character who makes comics in JoJo?
Yes.
Okay.
What's his stand? Oh, let me tell you. It's Heaven's Door. And it's if you see his original character, if he makes you look at it, it activates Heaven's Door and your face opens up into pages of a book that
fantastic.
writes your entire life and all your thoughts on it.
Ooh.
And he can go in there and read it. And also if you write something, it becomes true to yourself. So you can write, and I forgot that this happened. And then you forget that he ever hit you with that power. It's a crazy wild power. And I'm like, so I remember having a discussion about this with,
we should watch.
Yeah, it's great. But I remember having a discussion about like, well, what's your favorite JoJo character? And I'm like, I think it's Rohan because I kind of want to be like him, even though he's an asshole and he like hates the main character of that part, and that main character hates him. But they're kind of like allies, but they're like butting heads the whole time, and I love that.
Yeah, those are always.
And I want to be as good and fast at art as he is. Yeah. So that's Rohan.
Don't we all? We all should be like.
And
Rohan.
that's my JoJo hour.
Everyone be like Rohan.
Yeah, and Araki wishes he was Rohan as well, probably, because that's the man's life since the 80s is making this series. So,
oh boy.
Yeah.
The one thing I can remember that I've seen from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was the moment I think it's the main character defeats a police officer with his bottle of Coke.
Yes. Yeah, that's from part 2. That's the beginning of part 2.
Beginning of part 2.
Yeah. And that's Joseph. And he uses his Hamon energy to shoot
Alright, I can follow this.
Shoot the
I
bottle.
know what that is.
Yeah, I made her watch a couple episodes.
Okay.
You're in
he
like
shoots
the middle
the bottle cap.
Yeah, and breaks the finger that's on the trigger of the police
gun.
officers. Yeah.
He breaks his finger with the bottle cap off of his coat.
Great sequence.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I should watch the entirety.
And you
of the
should,
show.
and everyone watching
will.
or listening also should watch it.
But I've been denying myself.
Yeah. It all comes back. It all circles back.
I know. Yeah.
I would say we would just have you on again, but I think we're running out of time for that.
I'll build my own rig like this. We could do remotes. I can report in from the Great White North, where I'll have actually literally nothing to talk about.
Maybe we'll finally start doing remotes one day.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at. We've been talking about this forever.
I can be like the Larry the Cable Guy for Cadmium Dread.
Wait, I don't get the reference though. For Larry the Cable Guy.
Before Larry the Cable Guy was like Larry the Cable Guy, the stand-up character.
Yeah.
He was
the Prilosec spokesperson.
Yeah, exactly. He was like this guy who would call into a morning Zoo Crew radio shows as like their character. Now I mean like plural. He would do like 4 shows a day.
Really?
And people would be like, he'd be like, and now we're gonna check in with Larry the Cable Guy. Larry, where are you at? And he would do a bit, and then he would hang up the phone, and then he would call into another show in another market. So there would be like the Zoo Crew in like Tampa, Florida, and there'd be the Zoo Crew in like Atlanta, Georgia. There'd be the Zoo Crew in like Oklahoma, and he would call into all these different like local Zoo Crew shows, and like he'd be like the character. So when he came to he did a show, he would be able to tour America, and everybody knew him because he was the guy from the Morning Zoo Crew show, none of them knowing that he was also the guy from every Morning Zoo Crew show.
That's bananas. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. You can be our Larry the Cable Guy.
I'm going to be your Larry the Cable Guy, but also I'm going to be the Larry the Cable Guy for a lot of other podcasts.
Yeah, well, I feel a bit like you're cheating on us, but that's fine. You know what?
That's great. It's good that I tell you up front.
That's true. Anyways,
Yeah, so
that'll be it. I think
that was Cadmium Dread.
that was Cadmium Dread. Yeah, I didn't do the thing at the beginning, so I'll do it now.
Well, you can sign us off as Jar Jar.
No, you guys already displayed your displeasure.
I wasn't displeased.
Okay. Do you have anything to say before I sign us off as Jar Jar?
Well,
Any last
Daniel
moment?
have
last
any
words?
closing statements?
Yeah. Anything you want to tell the folks at home before Jar Jar signs us off? I think the concept of Jar Jar signing us off has got you a bit like
it's melted my brain slowly.
Yeah. A bit locked in place.
Yes, be Cadmium Dread.
That was me.
Josh, why would you do that?
No, don't. Okay, well, thank you, Jar Jar.
Yes, you're welcome.
Pretty good.
Misa ate the paint. Okay. See what I did there? All right. It's way too late.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's hot. We're all dying in here.
Thank
We
you
gotta
so
stop
much.
the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Daniel, for joining.
Thanks.
us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it was our pleasure. Until next
Thanks
time.
for listening. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.